Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something pretty common, actually. How do you effectively bring a development agency on board, to really boost your product?
hmm
Our source is this great piece from the Planet Argon blog. It's called Resourcing and Coordination Basics, a CEO's guide to onboarding a development agency, part of a series.
Yeah, it's a good one. And it really hits on the core idea, doesn't it? It's so much more than just like hiring coders.
Exactly.
Doing that onboarding well, that's what really unlocks momentum, speeds things up, and you get these, valuable new perspectives.
Right. Especially as the article points out in those sort of long-term partnerships.
Absolutely. So what we're trying to do today, our mission, is basically to pull out those key things CEOs and product leaders really need to grasp for successful onboarding. Focusing on that resourcing and coordination piece based on Planet Argon's own experience with these ongoing retainers.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Starting with communication schedules. It sounds basic, maybe, but Planet Argon says it's absolutely crucial. You need real intentionality here.
That's spot on. And it's not just any communication.
Mm,
They really push for structure, like a regular weekly call
okay.
between your main internal contact and the agency's project manager.
And that's for reviewing progress, setting priorities.
Exactly. Reviewing progress, sorting out priorities, and crucially, catching any blockers early on before they become big problems.
Makes sense. And they also mentioned asynchronous updates, right? Like daily check-ins on Slack or Jira.
Yeah, that's the other piece. Keep that visibility high day to day, but without, endless meetings.
Right. Avoids bottlenecks, keeps things flowing.
It ties right into Agile, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That iterative progress, frequent feedback, these touch points, both live and async, they're vital.
Mm-hmm.
And make another really practical point, too, being super clear on how you use your tools.
Oh, yeah. Like which system for tickets? Where's the documentation?
Precisely. Jira or Trello for tickets, Confluence or GitHub Wiki for docs, where comms happen. Seems small, maybe, but getting aligned on that saves so much hassle later.
Totally. And what about when things change? Goals shift? Scope creeps?
That's where those regular forums are key. Be transparent. Bring up those shifts early.
So you can recalibrate.
Exactly. Recalibrate early. Don't wait until it's a scramble. There's this great quote in the piece, too.
Oh, yeah.
Communication is the one non-technical lever that most strongly impacts velocity in the first 60 days of a project.
Wow. Okay. That really puts a fine point on it. It's not just soft skills, it directly impacts speed.
Absolutely. It makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How deliberately are you listening now, setting up these communication rhythms when you bring on a partner?
Yeah.
It's easy to focus just on the tech side.
Right. But this non-technical part, it clearly has a huge impact on how fast you actually see results. Okay, so communication groundwork laid. Let's talk, people. That internal contact. Planet Argon says you absolutely need one empowered person internally.
Yes. And I love how they frame that role, not just a contact, but what was it, a translator of priorities.
Right. And keeper of the roadmap. Unblocker in chief.
Yeah, it paints a picture of someone really active, someone who gets the product vision, but also understands the technical constraints.
And they compare it to the agency side, where you typically have a dedicated PM and lead engineer. This internal person needs to match that.
hmm And crucially, they need authority, or at least the ability to get quick decisions on things like scope changes or budget tweaks.
Yeah, that makes sense. No waiting around for approvals.
And they warn against, having multiple people giving directions,
Yeah.
fragmented ownership.
Oh, that sounds like a nightmare for the agency.
It is. It just leads to muddied priorities, confusion, timeline drift. Agencies need that clarity. Who's the main point person? What does success look like from your end?
And responsiveness is key too, right? Especially with Agile. If the agency needs input mid-sprint,
Delays on your side can just grind things to a halt.
yeah,
And the final point they make here, which I think is really important, is treating the agency like actual partners.
not just vendors.
Exactly, collaborators. That's how you unlock that deeper strategic value beyond just getting tasks done.
It really changes the dynamic.
It does. It shifts it from just transactional to, well, collaborative, like they're an extension of your team.
Yeah.
So for you listening, the question is, who internally has that mix? Product vision, technical awareness, and the authority to really partner up.
Good question. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Resourcing the developers themselves, the article tackles that common question. How many devs do I need?
Right. But then they pivot, quite smartly, I think, to talking about developer days per week.
Okay, tell me more. Why developer days?
Well, it's just a clearer metric, isn't it? Headcount can be misleading. You might have 3 devs, but how much time are they actually spending on your project? Developer Days gives you a much better handle on the actual effort.
So it helps with managing the work and the budget.
Precisely. They mention a typical team setup, maybe a lead engineer, like a senior Rails dev for them, support engineers, maybe an engineering manager, plus the PM. But tracking dev days is the key insight. It moves away from just counting heads.
And what are the advantages they list for thinking in dev days?
Well, first, like you said, clarity. Much better for sprint planning, tracking the budget instead of a team. You have, say, 15 developer days this week. It's tangible.
Okay, got it.
Second, flexibility. Need to speed up a launch. You can talk about scaling up the dev days. Budget tight. You can potentially scale down the dev days. It's a clear unit to adjust.
Right, more control.
And third, maybe the most important, is tracking progress. Seeing how much work gets done per dev day gives you earlier, more reliable signals about delivery timelines.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's much more concrete than just hoping the team finishes on time.
Exactly. It takes the abstraction out of it. And the article suggests you should proactively ask your agency how they approach resourcing.
Mm-hmm. Encourages that transparency right from the start.
Yeah, it's not about micromanaging. It's about shared understanding, making sure how they resource the work aligns with your goals and expectations.
Okay, makes sense. Finally, let's talk about those big moments. Planning the big push, new features, major releases, demos, campaigns. Planet Argon says coordination is everything here, especially with an external team.
Yeah, and because they often have these long-term relationships, they see this pattern. They're not just coding the feature. They're often helping clients actually plan the pace and strategy of the launch.
So what are the key steps they recommend for planning these big pushes successfully?
First up, lock the scope early. Define your must-haves versus your nice-to-haves.
And do that with the agency's input, right?
Absolutely. Get their technical perspective on what's feasible, what the risks are.
Okay, scope locked. What's next?
Build in a buffer, a sprint buffer, maybe an extra week or two.
For QA, polish.
Exactly. QA, polish, and dealing with those inevitable, unexpected things that always crop up. Big launches rarely go exactly to plan.
True enough. What else?
Get other teams involved early. Marketing, training, any key stakeholders. Don't wait until the last minute.
Yeah, everyone needs to be ready, aligned.
And the final bit is having really clear definitions of done.
Beyond just the code works.
Right. Does it include test coverage, documentation? Is the staging environment set up? Analytics tracking in place? That whole picture.
It really brings it all together, doesn't it? That kind of detailed, shared planning is what avoids chaos later.
It minimizes chaos, maximizes impact. It turns what could be a frantic scramble into something much more controlled. Better for everyone, better for the product, better for the users.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive into Planet Argon's thinking really drives home that hiring an agency, especially long-term, is really about building a partnership.
Yeah, definitely. Built on clear communication, having that empowered internal person.
That thoughtful resourcing, thinking in developer days.
And that really collaborative planning for the big stuff.
And the main takeaway for you, listening, is that getting these fundamentals right early on, this coordination stuff, it's not just about speed.
No, it's about unlocking the full potential. Having a team that's truly embedded, that grows with you, becomes a real strategic asset.
Right. So here's a final thought for you to chew on. Think about your next big product initiative. How could really proactively implementing these coordination basics change things? How might it transform not just the project's success, but also that ongoing relationship with your tech partners? Something to consider. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.